Most know about oil and gas, and unlike my EU and UK colleagues, the US very much operates in the oil and gas space. So if you're interested in that, feel free to talk to us.
He's very much aware of the issue with Venezuela. And that's a crucial issue for us. He's aware of the Venezuelan issue, and we expect strong solidarity from him and President Trump, the US administration, on the Guyana-Venezuela border controversy, which is now before the ICJ.
Does Trump want free oil from Guyana for protection from Venezuela? Trump's strategy: resources for protection. Donald Trump has always viewed U.S. military power as a bargaining chip rather than a traditional diplomatic tool. Unlike past presidents who framed military alliances around shared democratic values or security commitments, Trump has repeatedly hinted that U.S. protection should come at a price, often in the form of economic or resource-based concessions. This approach aligns with his broader America First policy, where he emphasizes transactional diplomacy over long-standing alliances. Throughout his presidency and beyond, he has suggested that wealthy nations should pay the U.S. for military assistance, whether in NATO, the Middle East, or Asia. This philosophy is now extending to South America, particularly in Guyana. With Venezuela's renewed threats over the disputed Essequibo region, an area rich in oil and natural resources, Trump sees an opportunity. He could offer Guyana military protection against Venezuelan aggression, but in return, he may demand favorable access to Guyana's massive oil reserves. Given the significant investments by American oil giant ExxonMobil in Guyana, Trump may leverage U.S. influence to ensure that Guyana prioritizes U.S. interests in oil extraction and exportation. If Trump successfully brokers such a deal, it would mark a shift in how the U.S. engages with its allies and partners in the Western Hemisphere. Instead of providing security based on diplomatic commitments, he would be establishing a model where financial or resource-based contributions are prerequisites for American military support. This could lead other nations, including those in the Caribbean and South America, to reevaluate their alliances with the U.S. and consider diversifying their security partnerships with other global powers. Why Guyana's oil matters to Trump. Guyana is home to one of the fastest-growing oil reserves in the world, with recent discoveries placing it among the top oil producers in the Western Hemisphere. This small South American nation has become a major player in global energy markets, with vast offshore reserves drawing the interest of major corporations, including ExxonMobil. Under a Trump administration, securing access to Guyana's oil could be crucial for both economic and strategic reasons, particularly as the U.S. seeks to counter China's growing influence in the Caribbean and South America. Trump has long advocated for energy independence and dominance, often pushing for more favorable oil deals with allies and economic partners. By framing U.S. military support as a necessity for Guyana's security against Venezuela, he could pressure Guyana's leadership into providing the U.S. with preferential oil agreements. This would not only strengthen America's energy security, but also counter Venezuela's influence in the region, which remains aligned with China, Russia, and Iran. Beyond economic factors, Trump's interest in Guyana's oil could also serve as a geopolitical strategy to regain leverage over global energy markets. With increasing competition from oil-rich nations like Saudi Arabia and Russia, securing a steady supply from Guyana would allow the U.S. to maintain greater control over production and pricing. If Trump succeeds in negotiating a resource for protection deal, it could lead to further tensions with OPEC and non-aligned oil-producing nations that see such arrangements as a threat to their market influence. The Venezuela-Guyana border dispute. The border dispute between Venezuela and Guyana is one of the longest-running territorial conflicts in Latin America. Venezuela claims the Essequibo region, a vast area covering two-thirds of Guyana, as its own territory, based on historical treaties dating back to the 19th century. In recent years, the discovery of significant oil reserves in Essequibo has reignited tensions, with Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro taking an increasingly aggressive stance. Maduro has even conducted military exercises near the disputed border and held a controversial referendum, rallying public support for Venezuela's claim. Given this backdrop, Trump could position himself as a defender of Guyana's sovereignty while simultaneously pushing for American access to its oil. A potential military presence in Guyana would serve as both a warning to Venezuela and a strategic move to secure America's energy interests. However, such a deal would not come without controversy. If Guyana were to agree, it could face backlash from CARICOM nations and other global powers wary of increased U.S. militarization in the region. Moreover, Venezuela's alliance with Russia and China could complicate matters further. If Trump moves forward with military support for Guyana, it could prompt a stronger response from these global powers, potentially escalating tensions in the region. Any perceived U.S. intervention in Guyana's affairs might also embolden Maduro to seek greater military assistance from Moscow and Beijing, creating a geopolitical standoff that could extend beyond Latin America. Trump's similar playbook in Ukraine. The idea of Trump seeking economic returns for military protection is not unique to Guyana. Reports have surfaced that he has considered a similar arrangement with Ukraine, suggesting that U.S. military support against Russia should be tied to access to Ukraine's vast mineral resources. Ukraine is rich in rare earth minerals, lithium, and other critical materials essential for modern technology, and Trump's focus on resource-based diplomacy could mean pressuring Ukraine into granting the U.S. economic privileges in exchange for continued military aid. This approach reflects Trump's broader skepticism of unconditional foreign aid. He has often criticized military assistance that does not yield direct benefits for the U.S., arguing that allies should contribute more financially or economically. By linking security guarantees to resource access, he could reshape traditional U.S. alliances into more transactional relationships. However, such a stance risks alienating allies and undermining America's long-term strategic influence. If Trump successfully pressures Ukraine into such a deal, it could set a precedent for future U.S. engagements with allied nations. Countries facing security threats may feel compelled to surrender economic resources in exchange for military protection, fundamentally altering the nature of global alliances. Such a shift could also encourage adversaries like Russia and China to offer competing security deals, further fragmenting global diplomatic ties. Global consequences. If Trump pursues a protection for resources strategy with Guyana, it could have significant geopolitical repercussions. Venezuela, already an ally of Russia and China, could be further pushed into their sphere of influence. If Trump explicitly ties U.S. military support to oil access, it could provoke diplomatic backlash from Venezuela's allies, leading to increased tensions between Washington and Beijing or Moscow. Additionally, such a move might encourage other nations to adopt a more aggressive stance in securing their own resource-driven interests. For Guyana, accepting such a deal could mean greater security against Venezuela, but at the cost of economic sovereignty. While Trump's offer of protection might seem appealing in the short term, Guyana could face long-term consequences if its oil wealth becomes overly dependent on U.S. interests. Meanwhile, CARICOM nations and regional leaders may push back against U.S. interference, seeing it as a form of neocolonialism rather than genuine assistance. Ultimately, Trump's approach to Guyana's oil and Ukraine's minerals signals a major shift in U.S. foreign policy, one that prioritizes economic gain over traditional alliances. If such tactics become the norm, they could erode trust in U.S. commitments worldwide, leading allies to seek alternative security arrangements. The long-term impact of these deals could reshape global power dynamics, altering America's role in international relations for years to come.